We're live.
We're live.
Is it Friday yet? Is the question.
No, it's just Thursday.
What's up, guys? This is CK. We got the second installment of Bitcoin Happy Hour. We got a very solid crew here and an awesome lineup of topics to chat about. Before we get into everything, I want to tell you about Bitcoin Black Friday. Bitcoin Black Friday is coming up next Friday. And if you want to buy a hardware wallet, if you want to get a new VPN, if you want to get a new hammock or whatever, and anyone that is accepting Bitcoin for their services, they are on Bitcoin Black Friday and they are offering discounts. I truly think that the prime spot to really get some value out of Bitcoin Black Friday as a Bitcoiner is in the hardware wallet department. Every single hardware wallet is there, and every single one has a double-digit discount. So go check that out. You can also win an entire Bitcoin when you sign up for the Fold card on BitcoinBlackFriday.com. So check that out as well. But that's enough of me. Let's get right into our introductions. Let's go to Vake. Welcome to the show, man. I've been a big fan of you on Twitter, probably since I got onto Bitcoin Twitter. So it's exciting to finally get to chat.
Well, if you're a fan of me, then we're in deep shit. I'm not an oracle.
Yep. So other than not an oracle, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I've been in Bitcoin since about April of 2013. I don't really do anything in Bitcoin. I work external to it. I just shitpost on Twitter mostly. So there's not much to say there. It's been around a while.
It's a healthy lifestyle, man.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump over to Fred. You, unlike Vake, are actually in Bitcoin and working in the space. Why don't you tell our audience about yourself?
Yeah, so currently I'm working with Blockonomics, which is a Bitcoin payment processor for e-commerce. Been working on and off with them for about 4 years now. So really excited about that and happy to be here.
Awesome. And last but not least, let's jump over to you, AJ. How's it going, man?
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on, guys. Yeah, Bitcoin class of 2017. And I work at a firm called Galaxy Digital. We're a merchant bank focused on Bitcoin and other digital assets.
Nice. And are you on the mining side of things at Galaxy, or what's your focus?
I split time between our balance sheet investments and our Bitcoin mining business.
Okay. Awesome. And actually, Joe, who's technically on the team and has been a co-host, is here, and he's not a co-host today. He's just hanging out. Joe, why don't you introduce yourself, sir?
Hey, I'm Joe Rodgers. Glad to be here. Just another Bitcoin shit poster. Glad to be here.
Let's go.
Some White Claw.
What's everyone drinking? Got some claws?
Yeah.
Water.
Some water?
Yeah, I'm pretending that this is something.
If you see me, beer me.
Don't tell us that, man. We got a proper whiskey from AJ, so he's really holding it down for the crew.
Someone's
Little Knob Creek.
I like it. All right, guys. Well, let's just get right into the first topic. This is our only technical topic, and then we're just going to be talking about Bitcoin price. But there's a lot of bullishness kind of going around mining hash rate and mining pools actually getting behind Taproot. So, even up until 2 or 3 months ago, developers were kind of discussing how are we going to activate this thing. They were, preparing for the worst based on what they've experienced with SegWit and the SegWit 2X debacle in 2017, 2016 during the great blockchain debate or block size debate. But now it seems as though Taproot, everyone loves it. And that also includes the mining pools. I think it's appropriate to jump to you, AJ, since you actually are on the mining side of things. Do you have any comments on Taproot and this kind of surprise excitement from miners?
I wish I had more kind of special insight here. It's awesome to see that people are supporting what seems to be a relatively uncontroversial upgrade, hoping to avoid a repeat of 2017, which it seems like is likely at this point. So that's good.
Likely
Awesome.
or unlikely?
Right. Likely to avoid.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah.
It sounds like you have a similar sentiment to Vake, who I was celebrating this, and he was like, no shit, dude.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have the ASIC boost lobby in Bitmain opposing it this time, so it'll go through much smoother. I don't think there's a big lobby for ECDSA over Schnorr, right? So nobody's going to really push back against it. It will be a little bit of a while before we start seeing the benefits, right? I mean, it's been merged into the code, right? But then that new version of Bitcoin Core hasn't been released yet, and it'll probably take a couple years for wallets to implement it. But it's exciting, especially Schnorr signatures. I mean, the ability to aggregate signatures and make multi-sig much less expensive is a very promising development, because multi-sig is key to Bitcoin's future.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of like the programmable part of the programmable money. I feel like people don't really catch on to that quite as much. Fred, do you have any thoughts here?
Well, to be honest, in my line of work with Bitcoin, I don't deal enough with the technical aspects. So I was having to read up on Taproot coming into this. But I figure that any updates that seems that the majority of the Bitcoin community can get behind, I'm for. And seeing how it can be used then practically for transactions and stuff like that. And privacy, it's important.
Everyone seems to be extremely pragmatic here. Joe, do you have anything to say about this that's like maybe like digging a little bit deeper?
Well, I like the Taproot activation webpage that kind of shows all the pools coming on board, which is pretty cool to see. I hope to see some more visualization and ways to dig into who's signaling yay or nay. But I'm just curious, like, who is going to be the motherfuckers who just hold out? Like, who's going to not signal? And I think that'll be pretty interesting to see. I mean, I'm not taking any bets, but I was looking at the outstanding pools that are out there, and it's like, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but you need 90% signaling yes for it to be activated. So like some of those pools were mighty close to 10% of hash rate. So it's like, could one of these bastards hold out and just slow us down? So I don't know. That's something I'm thinking, in the back of my mind, but I might be totally wrong on the way that is executed.
I think UASF taught everybody that I mean, they can't block it forever. I mean, SegWit was far more controversial, and we got that through. So this is going to
I swear there's been like nothing but thoughtful debate and talking about it. It seems like there's been a lot of code review. I mean, I've never reviewed a line of code, but from the things that I read and the people that I follow, it seems like there's been a fair amount of discourse. I mean, if you pop in the IRC channels, there's been a ton of conversation about how to make this happen smoothly and how to vet it. So, I mean, in my opinion, they've been, the technical folks who we kind of put some faith in have been doing their homework, and looks like a green light, but man,
I would I would push back on the idea that there's going to be holdouts. I mean, in my opinion, the difference between this update and SegWit was that there aren't really any stakeholders with something to lose by Taproot. Like you had the covert ASIC boost that really prevented SegWit from getting accepted by Bitmain. There's not that, at least as far as anyone knows, or at least as far as I've seen, there's not that sort of party in this case. So I would be surprised. Like, I get that there's going to be holdouts from the standpoint of no one wants to be the first one to jump. And like, if there is some sort of technical flaw with this, you always want to be kind of the last mover. But, this one seems pretty simple. And so I wouldn't be surprised if it's like surprisingly painless as it has been so far.
I got a question though, follow up. You said this seems pretty simple. I mean, like, how many more of these are in the hopper for Bitcoin? Pretty simple upgrade.
So I
consensus for everyone.
No, I want to like kind of dig into this because I want to try to understand, like, what does this mean about Bitcoin's nature, and are we going to be able to continually upgrade it, right? Because there's this narrative of ossification. There's this, and I think that a lot of like the narrative around ossification stemmed from how hard it was to get SegWit across. We're like, we can't keep doing this, right? But if it's not going to be like that, like, what does that mean? And I mean, like, yeah, I guess like coordination among stakeholders. Are we going to get to a point at some point where we can't coordinate? Like how's all that kind of like Like, what are you guys reading from this?
Well, I think the argument for ossification is that the core protocol is probably the most likely attack vector if a government were to go after Bitcoin. So maybe ossifying the protocol and locking it down at some point once we get our minimum stuff, our Taproots, our Schnorrs. I don't know what comes after. What comes after Taproot? What's the next big thing? I don't know.
I mean, Jeremy wants CTV. I'm sure there's other things. There's another one that Lalu mentioned that would help with L2. I can't recall it right now.
Yeah,
I mean,
but at some point
developers want stuff.
Yeah, I know.
At one point, Vitalik wanted stuff, and obviously, like, that was out of the question. But developers want stuff.
Yeah, I know. And they say software is never done, but I mean, to me, it's kind of scary to if you tell me 10, 15 years from now we're still releasing new versions of Bitcoin and Bitcoin Core or whatever the dominant implementation is at the time, and people are still upgrading, it would give me a little bit of fear because, I mean, that's
upgrading at all or like new soft forked versions. Like, what are you talking about? Because I'm assuming that there will always be upgrades to tighten things up, that kind of thing, maintenance.
You can't stop somebody from releasing a new version of Bitcoin, but the question is, are people upgrading to the new version? What changes are being made? Is there a potential for the monetary supply to be altered? I mean, these are all questions, and it's just, I don't know. I think I'm in favor of ossification, but some people take the other side of that.
No, I can get that, Vake. As I'm, at the end of the day, I figure that Bitcoin, we want to see more adoption. And I think that the average person is going to be, concerned if, another 10, 15 years down the line, there's major updates coming out. They're going to be questioning, well, what does that mean for Bitcoin that I hold? Or, do I even want to get involved with this? And so, I can absolutely see that point.
Gold doesn't have updates every quarter or whatever. If we want this to become money,
but the IP stack, the Internet Protocol, does have upgrades every so often. I mean, there's
but Bitcoin Core is the base layer, right? So I don't care if Lightning or higher layers have updates. I just want the base layer to be locked in place. Right. I mean, if you put on sometimes I put on the evil government NSA agent hat.
I want you to put that hat on, Vake, and I want you to embrace it.
I don't think I have a hat near me, but I think to myself, if I were a government agent and I was assigned with destroying Bitcoin, the first thing I would do is I would infiltrate Bitcoin Core. I would bribe, threaten, coerce developers to put in malicious updates.
So, I mean, if you want to see an example of this, like, just look no further than 2 weeks ago with Ethereum, where they had a hard fork and they went with, because the developers, put something into the code that could be hard forked or could create a hard fork. And it was actually, set off, and, Infura and other infrastructure users who are on old versions of Geth, they got forked off and they went with the new version. That's the key. And, until I see any indication that Bitcoiners or the Bitcoin ecosystem would go with the new version of some sort of fork that would compromise the monetary policy or something like that, I don't know. I'm okay with seeing software continue to develop, and like the fact that this is not being rejected shows me that the immune system works. It's not a over immune system, right? It's not rejecting everything. It's just rejecting bad things. It's rejecting attacks, but accepting things that are good for the body.
It should be an absurdly high threshold for new updates in the future. But to your point about Ethereum going to the new version during the chain split, in May 2013, Bitcoin had accidental chain split, but we downgrade to the old version, which is the exact opposite action. That chain split, by the way, was caused by Mike Hearn, I believe.
Love him.
Yeah.
Let's go to AJ. Haven't heard from you for a little bit. Do you have thoughts kind of about like what are we learning about Bitcoin from seeing kind of the signaling around Taproot?
I'd actually like to get a little bit smarter on like these different kind of activation paths and kind of the pros and cons of each. That's one thing that, I don't know, maybe I'm a little bit like delinquent in my obligations as a Bitcoiner, but I don't like, do you guys have a strong view on like which of these paths is the best path forward? And like, yeah, I'd love to just hear like your guys' views on that. So that's one thing it's been a little bit difficult to parse as someone who's like not super technical.
So there's a great podcast by Aaron Van Werdum. His podcast show is called The Van Werdum Shores NATO, where he goes through all the technical stuff. It's on Bitcoin Magazine. He does walk through BIP8, BIP9, all these kind of different options, modern activation path. I personally am not super well read on them. I do know that BIP8 is kind of like the hard flag day. That's similar to SegWit, the SegWit update. Where people were just like, no, fuck it, we're doing this thing on this day. And then I know that the modern activation is kind of like a combination between signaling and a flag day or pushing things back. But I don't know the details off the top of my head. So welcome anyone here who knows better than me.
I feel like Vake has an opinion on this. No.
Well, I mean, I think the minor. You're talking minor activated soft forks versus user activated soft forks.
Or even just these different BIP options.
Yeah, like BIP8 versus BIP9.
Yeah, that stuff is over my head. Yeah, I got to read up more on that.
Well, I mean, if I could jump in, these different BIPs are all really just ways of measuring consensus, right? And so as long as we're getting a consensus from the users, from the people who are, the biggest stakeholders in Bitcoin, that this is an upgrade that they want and they understand and they, are ready to implement, then the way by which it gets implemented, I feel like has some flexibility. And there's probably no one right answer. I mean, the thing that we fell back on with SegWit is that it required a 95% signaling by miners. And that ultimately was what we had to figure out a game theory way to kind of hack into. But as long as you're not seeing that, withholding of the user's will, then I don't think there's too much importance that needs to be put on the actual activation pathway. I guess that's my 2 sats.
All right. Seems like there's not too much to say here. I mean, if you guys, let's just say as Bitcoin node operators, right, and you're kind of faced with wait longer to get SegWit, to get Taproot, or join a cohort of Bitcoiners, let's just call them unapologetic minority, who are, downloading their own version, their own fork of core that is going to activate SegWit and do a user activated soft fork. What would you do? Let's go to Vake. Would you do a user activated soft fork for SegWit in the face of just having to wait?
For SegWit, yes.
Taproot.
For Taproot, no, I wouldn't join a user activated soft fork. I don't think it's the risk of user activated soft fork is that you have a chain split, right? Like when Luke Dax Jr. in 2017 was pushing for UASF, the other core devs called him crazy because he was risking chain split. But SegWit was important enough because it was the key that unlocked the door to Lightning Network. Taproot, I mean, I love it. Don't get me wrong. And I think it's great. I'm happy that we're getting close to having it. But I don't think it's such an essential ingredient to Bitcoin's success that we should risk a chain split. I'm fine without it in Bitcoin. That's just me.
Yeah, I feel like I fully agree with that. Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but Bitcoin works pretty well for me the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think SegWit was definitely more of an immediate pressing. There was more of a need for that, just given the situation with fees and everything at the time.
Could you not foresee?
I don't even know if SegWit was needed with that logic.
Could you not foresee a need for Taproot from a privacy standpoint? I mean, Schnorr signatures, for instance, that are part of this activation.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm in favor of it, but it's about the cost versus the benefit of risking a chain split. If we met major resistance by miners.
Minor or minor?
Yeah, minor, as in under 18.
Right, guys, I want to change the topic. I mean,
hey,
it seems as though
real quick. So,
yeah.
One of the original questions you said, CK, was what does this mean for Bitcoin at large? And just my thoughts. There hasn't been a big dissenting voice on this, so it feels like, just for me and just from being an observer and watching things and watching the signaling happening, that the people who are vested into Bitcoin are more unified than I've seen. I mean, I got involved around mid 17. So like since then, it's been just a fucking shit show. It feels like across the whole landscape of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general. But I'm saying like, it seems like very unified. That there's a lot of, I don't know, momentum and positive things happening. So I think that's overall, this is good for Bitcoin.
You know, you bring up a good point, Joe. I think that someone could really make it their shtick to be just vehemently anti-Taproot and like really get some notoriety in the space and some popularity if they were just that guy. And just no one's taken up that mantle. So by all means, you know, if you want to be that guy, maybe you can.
I'd love for somebody to do that. I'd love to hear the why is Taproot bad.
Well, on the IRC channels, the developers been talking about that. I can't remember who was saying it, but they're saying like, why would we push out activation so fucking long? Because you're literally going to give some opponent to come out here and just start shitting FUD. And we've already had these arguments. That this was the consensus that I gathered from IRC, that they've had these arguments in IRC. They've talked it out. They vetted it. They've tested it. You know, they reviewed code. We've had our time. Now it's time to either signal or not signal. But you're right, Brandon. Like someone could come out and just start shitting all over it and make a name for themselves. But that
okay, I'll make an anti-Taproot argument. I'm pulling it out of my ass here.
Here we go.
But I'll say that
Brand is usually this guy, so this is great.
Software developers love to write software, and so there is a risk in a software engineering project that the project is over-engineered, where they continually push out updates and they fuck things up. Like, I mean, have you guys ever had like, you know, the new update for your iPhone or Android or your Mac or your PC or whatever? And you're like, why the fuck did they change this? It was so perfect the way it was. And that's a possibility in core where they keep releasing shit because they feel like it's their job to keep. There always has to be the next version, and maybe there's going to be a point where they push the envelope too far and they add shit. Now I don't know if Taproot is that line where we're going too far, but maybe in 5-10 years we need to ossify. This is the pro ossification argument.
So yeah, I mean, I was about to say the same thing though. I was going to say, like, is it worrisome that Bitcoiners are so aligned that we can all coordinate so easily? Like, isn't that the whole freaking point about Bitcoin? Or are we actually coordinating, you know, and missing like 90% of Bitcoiners? You know,
yeah, we all need to be bickering a lot more. We're all way too unified. We should be at each other's throats.
Don't worry, the bull market has only just begun. I'm sure we'll find things to bicker about in the next few months.
Yeah, I know. Like
the bear market is for bickering. Bull market is for.
I mean,
top of the bull market.
The last intra Bitcoin argument I could hear of was like the people that are pro versus anti SegWit, or not SegWit, S2F, stock to flow. Right, that's the only major divide.
I thought you were going to say chairs.
Yeah, all right, well, I guess I want to talk about changing tides for Bitcoin, but let's talk about S2F right here. Any pro or like strongly pro or anti S2Fers here?
I'm pro. I stand strongly in
Clearly.
that account. Yeah. Like I've never been very publicly in that debate because I'm not, you know, no one cares about my opinions. But I will say that I think that the fundamental driving force of Bitcoin is the halving, the driving force of the price. And all that S2F is like one attempt at trying to model that. And, you know, Nick Carter was just on Bloomberg, like trying to be like, everyone knew that the halving was going to happen, therefore it's not priced in, yada, yada, yada. Shout out Nick Carter. You're wrong. All right. The halving matters. The halving, this supply shock, no matter how predictable it is not possible to price it in because it is a supply shock. I mean, it shocks the system. Liquidity dries up. There's no one selling. Everyone's ready for no one to sell now. And like the buyers are everywhere. I mean, it's just like, it's inevitable. It's water running downhill. And so, you know, the S2F model, maybe the prices are, you know, thick lines with a lot of error built into them. And so they're, you know, never going to be perfect, but that is the trajectory of Bitcoin. And I would, you know, celebrate the S2Fers.
The
Whoever
halving
wants
is
to come at me.
I like that take. I think the halving is the proprietary patent pending number go up tech. That's why
But the
why number
halving
go
is
up.
known in advance. I mean, it was known from day one of Bitcoin, right? We had this emission schedule
And
since
yet,
January
and yet
2009.
understanding of it has never been never been worse, right? So I don't know.
I forget who like first put this take out there, but I'm somewhat sympathetic to it. The idea that like every day that Bitcoin goes on and someone hasn't found a way to like, mess with the supply or tamper with the protocol in some way, that is like new information being revealed to the market. And so like
Sounds like a
it's
Parker Lewis.
Yeah, it might have been Parker, it might have been Pierre. It's kind of a variant of like the Lindy effect, but yeah, it's this idea that like the longer this goes on without someone fucking it up, that there's like value to that. That's new information. And so it can't be priced in advance.
I think the logical way to look at that is that we know that there's a halving that's planned. But if you kind of go back to 2000 and when was the first halving? 2012, right? Yeah. So if you go back to before the very first halving, a lot of people didn't know if it would go off without a hitch, right? In fact, didn't some miners at the very first halving rebel against it, right? They wanted to continue the initial 50 Bitcoins per block mission schedule, and then they were obviously forked off. But it went through without a hitch, and the subsequent without a hitch. And each halving that goes off without a hitch, we know that Bitcoin's monetary policy is robust. So I guess that's kind of a logical way to look at it. As far as it being an impact on Bitcoin's price, the way I look at it is, I believe that Bitcoin will be the global reserve currency, and the total market cap will be in the hundreds of trillions of dollars someday. But we don't have, but we
The
as a
market
collective,
cap or the price per Bitcoin?
the total market
Why
cap,
so bearish?
unfortunately. But we as Bitcoiners, believers in it, don't have the liquidity or whatever, the money to lever it to arbitrage that difference. We need the Warren Buffetts and the Federal Reserves to get into the game. And so we're just waiting for that to happen. But I don't know if it's necessarily correlated with the halvings. I don't know. It's just kind of a cop-out answer.
I'll throw this out. Like the halvings, what happens inside of Bitcoin matters a lot more when the outside of Bitcoin cares about Bitcoin less. As the outside of Bitcoin cares about Bitcoin more, what happens within Bitcoin matters less. And Plan B has like alluded to it. Like at some point, it won't work. The dollar is going to break down. Bitcoin is going to become so important that the halvings don't matter. It's just absolutely scarce. Everyone knows that the halvings go infinitely into the future and that it approaches zero. But for now, what happens inside of Bitcoin, these halvings, like that matters a lot. I want to jump over to Fred because I haven't heard from you. Do you think about S2F? Do you think about any of this stuff? And what are your thoughts?
I mean, the S2F I think is interesting, and the rising price and so on. But of course, the question that I always ask myself about trying to predict or trying to put a chart together, be it S2F or be it pulling it out of whatever, how does the market react to that? Because of course, from my point of view, I am trying to we're providing a service for people who want to use Bitcoin as everyday currency. And yeah, it's great if everything's, rising, but, at some point of volatility does create problems for that day-to-day transaction. People won't want to spend their Bitcoin if they know that tomorrow, if they think that tomorrow it's going to be worth, $100,000. And I do think that part of that is going to limit the growth. And I think that that's something, when you look at, comparing S2F to gold or silver or whatever, people aren't trading in gold and silver every day. And I think that that's something that's forgotten about with these models, is that people are using Bitcoin as a currency, as a straight up, they are buying their coffee with some Bitcoin.
Some people are. Well, I think there's a lot of stats that show that as Bitcoin's price goes up, people spend it more too. So I don't know, maybe as money goes up or as it goes up, like that actually stimulates the spending. So if it goes to the moon, we'll be spending a shitload. Let's go, Joe.
No, yeah. I'm not necessarily saying, like, oh, I don't want Bitcoin to rise up anymore. I mean, I'm holding Bitcoin. I want to make money too. But but like it is something that I think needs to go into those models. Not so much that I don't want it. I would love it if it went to $100,000 in 2 years. But how do those models show those transactions happening on a daily basis? Because you don't have that with stocks, and with we're not spending stocks or gold for coffee, but many people in the Bitcoin community are.
I mean,
Well, last time you guys bought a cup of coffee with Bitcoin.
When was the last time to be honest, I hold my Bitcoin, but I mean,
spend and replace religiously.
Spend and replace is an option to do it, but we do see that, like we see those transactions happening on a daily basis. We've got the data there. We've got customers who are have set up a payment gateway and are using that Bitcoin, and it's not for big stuff. It's not for it is. There's like one guy who sells Finnish superfoods online. This isn't expensive stuff. This is just like Finnish tree bark. It's really cool, but like people are using it.
Yeah.
Don't you guys find the tax implications of spend and replace to be very annoying?
I mean, in America, for sure. But I mean, I think the people who are using it are people living on the margins, right? People who don't have non-taxable, fiat that they can use.
Yeah, I mean, when I have to buy my heroin on the darknet, I use Bitcoin, obviously. But apart from then, I never use Bitcoin. I'm always spending dollars.
But you're in the West.
Yes.
I'm just.
I pretty much only.
I'm waiting on Van Valkenburg and Jerry Brito and Niraj to come through with the nice legal stuff to make, what is it, under $400?
De minimis exemption, yeah.
Yeah, under $400 be untaxable. Please come through.
Yep.
But what I don't know. Why would you want it? Say you're not one of these people living at the margin who has, you have access to banking products in the United States. What is the argument for spend and replace? If you're not spending it at, or on like a hardware wallet or something that's, you're benefiting a Bitcoin business and you feel like you have a little bit of.
Some people just get like the tingles when they spend Bitcoin. You know what I mean? Like you just love that feeling. Well, I like it, but not enough to part with my Bitcoin.
I get more tingles when numbers go up.
Yeah,
so
me too.
I'm gonna continue hodling.
Spending like with spin and replace. For example, whenever I use Strike, I'm like I feel nothing because I have my cold stack and it feels great. Actually, I do feel something. It feels a tingle. I feel a tightening of my pants, and it's like it's a really great thing because I feel like number one, I'm supporting the circular economy, which I think is fucking awesome. And I feel like, I don't know if it matters, but I feel like I'm helping number go up. Like I'm creating demand for it. And I hope that more merchants will offer it eventually.
Strike's it
will not, you know what, Vake, you're right.
Yeah.
It's bullshit narrative, but no one is going to adopt it unless people demand it. So someone has to start fucking demanding it.
Yeah.
Even if it's just one person.
Fred, I have a question for you. So what percentage of Blockonomics users and merchants actually hold Bitcoin? Because I feel like the merchants that flip to fiat, that's not the circular economy. But if we can spend and replace and pump value into Bitcoin, into the hands of people that are valuing it and are going to hold it, that's a different story.
Yeah, so we actually did just do a study, I think, right around when the pandemic hit in March. I don't remember the exact number, but it was actually a lot higher than what you would expect of those merchants. I want to say, like 30 to 50% of our merchants were holding all of their earnings in Bitcoin, and then another 30% were at least keeping half. Now, I mean, I'm might be totally misremembering this, but the number was higher than I think a lot of people would expect. And that's part of what we're trying to do is build that market. Compared to even just 3 years ago, there are a lot more businesses out there for running, an e-commerce or, a store or whatever. You can pay for a lot of overhead things. You can pay for web hosting. You can pay for, themes on WordPress, things like that. You can do a lot of what you used to need fiat currency for with Bitcoin. And so, yeah, as we were saying, as Joe was saying, that the first step to creating a market, creating that demand, is necessary. And it's there.
I just want to say
It's
more,
there.
like, guys, what is the downside? Like, it's not touching your spin in their place specifically, because I see some folks in chat. What is the downside? If there is a, like here in the US, if there is a tool in place that literally takes your US dollars and immediately converts it to Bitcoin for you, and the merchant on the other end gets to stack sats, like, why is that a bad thing? I feel like, it's fun to take an
That's different than spend and replace, in my opinion.
Yeah,
How's that?
Strike is not the same.
Strike.
Yeah.
Your spend and replace means
Yeah,
you are buying
I thought
Bitcoin, you're spending the Bitcoin, and then you are buying more Bitcoin.
I feel like that's moving the goalpost, because before Strike existed,
is different.
No, before Strike existed, whenever I wanted to spend and replace, I would go on like Cash App, and if I wanted to spend some, let's say I wanted to buy a new cold card, I would send from my Cash App card to there from my Cash App account. I would make a withdrawal to that address for that payment, and then I would top it up immediately. How's that not spend and replace?
I mean, that's spend and replace.
That is spend and replace. Yeah.
Okay,
but
so,
the issue there is the mining. The miners' fees, the exchange fees. It's more
taxes,
expensive than
right?
just spending fiat.
Yeah, but like
taxes.
typically merchants, some merchants, they'll offer a discount if you pay in Bitcoin. I mean, that's one way to help.
BitcoinBlackFriday.com.
Listen, Joe. I'll tell you what. In like 2014 or 15, I bought my Xbox One for I think 2 Bitcoin. So I live to regret it this day. The $36,000 Xbox.
You would not have given a shit if you replaced it.
Yeah.
I also feel like there's a difference between, merchants demanding Bitcoin in exchange for their services or their goods that they're offering, and the sort of like, payments narrative that we saw in like 2014, 2015. Like if it's just the case that the merchant is auto selling your Bitcoin and they're using BitPay or something like that, and they have no intent to hold it, then are you really benefiting the circular economy at all? Or are you just, yeah. But like, I think if the merchant is, demanding Bitcoin and they want to stack sats themselves, I'm all for that. Yeah.
Well, and of course, as a competitor of BitPay, we do have a fiat, direct to fiat option. But honestly, as I was saying, most of our merchants seem to at least keep a majority of that Bitcoin in their wallet.
Fuck yeah.
That's awesome.
You guys, I want to change the topic a little bit to big boys buying Bitcoin, narrative changing around Bitcoin, the de-risking around big time hedge fund people who manage endowments talking favorably about Bitcoin. It seems like every single day I see some new big wig getting on television saying something super freaking bullish. Have the tides changed forever? Like, what do you guys like? What is happening right now in Bitcoin land? And yeah, I mean, when are the noobs gonna catch on? Let's go over to you, Fred.
Well, I mean, of course, the number one thing is PayPal. I think that's on everybody's mind right now. And I think that we have to keep an eye on how these people are the big wigs and companies like PayPal, how they are framing their Bitcoin argument. And so, for example, with PayPal, they seem to be really trying to see if they can control Bitcoin, or at least a subset of that Bitcoin market, with their limits on, what you can do. You can't do anything with it. You get it and you hold it, and you don't even have the keys, I believe, unless they've changed that since they came out with it a couple of weeks ago. And so I think that, yes, it's good to see more interest, but then we as a Bitcoin community have to ask ourselves, well, how are we going to treat that interest? Because new people are going to be coming in to this community, through PayPal, through hearing hedge fund managers, through hearing these people in CSBC, whatever it is. How do we then tell them, well, yeah, there's the PayPal narrative, but then here's the other narrative. Here's the better narrative. What you can do with Bitcoin that PayPal isn't going to let you.
AJ, I know at Galaxy you guys are deep with institutional players. What's the narrative like amongst that circle?
I think the Michael Saylor kind of digital gold 2.0 narrative is starting to resonate. Yeah. And like, I think like 2017 was a bull run driven largely by retail. I think this one is, I mean, this is an original insight by any means, but yeah, I think this one is driven by high net worth individuals and institutions. And that's just due to the fact that money and the educational resources to like understand technology and new asset classes are not evenly distributed, and the people with the most money are going to understand this thing better. So yeah, it's kind of my take.
I'd like to jump in on that a little bit. First off, I know you didn't mean this, but like digital gold 2.0 has been like, man, that predates Michael Saylor by a long shot. But here's what I will give Michael Saylor. All the new waves of Bitcoiners have to grapple with it, like with their own narratives and like their own understanding. And every new person that comes to Bitcoin brings kind of new insights. And I think what Michael Saylor really touched on that hadn't been talked enough about was, and like honestly, for the longest time, I thought the way that he was saying this, he was trolling us and that he was actually going to sell all his Bitcoin really quickly. But the digital wasps, the digital hornets, the fact that we have this like maxi group that will just go to war for Bitcoin being one of its strengths. I hadn't really heard people make that argument before, but since then I have heard multiple people who are more institutionally kind of focused repeat that as like one of the main things that actually sold them on Bitcoin. It was the fact that they had this unapologetic community that wouldn't, back down and like wouldn't just so quickly jump to the next new technology that was better or, yada, yada, yada. So, I'll give him that point. If I was looking at kind of the institutional narrative, I mean, I'm dumbfounded right now because you have in the past week and a half, 2 weeks, you had like Ray Dalio now say, what am I missing? Like, I feel like I'm missing something with Bitcoin. You've got Stan Druckenmiller, the man who broke the British pound with George Soros, literally like the managing director of Quantum Fund, saying that he's got a Bitcoin bet and he sees it as a stronger bet than gold and like more upside. You've got the second richest man in Mexico about to become the first richest man in Mexico because he's got 10% of his liquid net worth in Bitcoin. I mean, dude, this is insane.
And they get it. They get it. They're posting the Bitcoin standard. They know you got to hold. This is digital gold. It's not some tech, whatever. They get it.
It's crazy. And like, I have not been in Bitcoin long enough. I was a early 2017er, but like I've been in here long enough to have seen the tail end of Bitcoin is a total complete scam. Like that was the institutional narrative when I entered Bitcoin. And to hear it go from total complete scam to digital gold 2.0, hedge against inflation, uncorrelated asset, just like name your kind of bullish sentiment around it, is that's the tingling feeling I get, Joe, when I'm thinking about Bitcoin. Is like people are really catching on to this thing. They are really understanding it. And this is the kind of powder that, Vake, like you were talking about, it's the kind of powder that takes you instead of, from 1K to 20K, it takes you from 20K to, 350K, 500K and beyond. I mean, it's huge.
Yep. Well, I'm a pleb, a man of the people, so I don't know any financial bigwigs, but I will say this. Fuck all these legendary investors like Ray Dalio. I mean, if we could figure out Bitcoin years ago and they're only just now starting to catch on, I don't really think they're that bright. They're just beneficiaries of a rigged fiat system. As far as whether this bull run this week has been more institutional versus retail, like for 4 days this week, I just wore like a Bitcoin shirt until it was smelly and I had to throw in the laundry finally. But the reason why I wore it for like 4 days in a row is because every day people, when I was, out and about, doing a grocery shopping or whatever, people were coming up to me asking about Bitcoin or, commenting on it. I'm telling you, like people out there, there's a lot of latent interest, but people just don't know how to get in. So, I mean, I don't think this is as necessarily as institutional and non-retail as we think it is. I think there's a lot of moms and pops and uncles and people, just average Joes that are getting in right now.
100%.
Yeah. Like I there's my partner's mother. She didn't know anything about Bitcoin. And when I moved down here, she knew about my Bitcoin job. She wanted to learn more about it, but of course she hadn't heard anything about it before. And this was a couple of months ago. And she was really interested when someone actually sat her down beyond just weird internet money or this is a scam or whatever. She liked it. She was like, this is really interesting. Is she going to buy Bitcoin tomorrow? No, probably not. But it's planting that seed for further development.
Yeah, just average people just don't know where to go because there's just so much misinformation out there. So you just have to kind of steer them in the right direction.
Vake, real quick, one thing that I would want to add to you talking about the retail getting in is a difference between this past bubble and the upcoming bubble. Is in the past bubble, retail, your mom and pop got in and they put maybe 1% in Bitcoin. Whereas this time, you're going to see a mainstream wave, maybe not this time, but next time, but it's not going to be 1%. It's going to be 25% or it's going to be 50%. There's going to be some people who put in 100%. And like that's, when we're talking about how much money is sitting on the sidelines, it's not just people who haven't bought Bitcoin before, but it's the people who dip their toes in, who are now, have been spending the past 3 years learning about it and are now comfortable enough to understand the risk profile to then really make a big bet on it. So, I just wanted to echo what you're saying.
Yeah, new investors and larger proportions by old investors. It's both of them.
It's so much easier now too.
Mm-hmm.
Like the friction is so much lower to get your aunt or your grandma or whoever.
Yeah, I remember 2017 when it was like Coinbase or nothing else, and it was crashing every
Coinbase
5 minutes.
or Gemini.
Yeah, I mean that was pretty much it. I mean, what else was around then?
That was it.
Gemini
no
was
Cash App.
Gemini was really only just really like starting to take off. I mean, did they even have their bit license back in 2017? Had they just gotten it?
I mean, they're always the New York company.
Well, yeah, but like I can't get that timeline straight in my head. But like I think Binance had launched in September of 2017, maybe. I think you didn't have Cash App or Robinhood or any of those mainstream sort of fintech.
Like Robinhood.
But you can buy Bitcoin on there, whatever that means. But it's a great point.
You can buy IOUs.
Sure, you can buy Bitcoin derivatives on there, just like on PayPal. But point stands, like you're 100% right, AJ. That the amount of ease comparatively is just ridiculous. I mean, it's crazy.
The question is, are people withdrawing their money into their own wallets or just leaving it on the exchange or Coinbase or whatever?
What GBTC shows.
Yeah. So, I mean, we may have a fractional reserve problem coming soon.
I don't think that there's a fractional reserve problem because I think that companies that are fractional reserved have a problem. Not Bitcoin has a fractional reserve problem. I do want to talk about the plebs though, because Vake, you brought up the plebs as this like this floor, this like group of people that maybe they're not big time finance, they're not big time investors, but they get it. They're stacking and they don't care. Nothing is going to stop them. They understand the investment. Like there's nothing more bullish to me than that, because in 2017 I saw the XRP army, like these idiot retail that like got caught onto the XRP stupid memes, but like not to say anything about people catching onto the Bitcoin memes as these are stupid people, but like they're retail who are catching onto the Bitcoin memes. There's nothing more bullish than that, and Bitcoin wakes you up. And once you see Bitcoin for real, like you're not the same person. I love it.
I think seeing the Bitcoin recover its market dominance through 2018, 19, and 20 thus far really reinforced it as the leader of the pack. Whereas, in 2017, the flippening narrative was very strong. You guys remember that flippening watch site where, Ethereum came within it was 2/3 of Bitcoin's market cap. So it came pretty close. But now the Bitcoin only theme is so much stronger. People get that there's a difference.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I was like towards the tail end of 2017, so I don't remember like kind of this phase of that bull run, but like I don't hear anything about shitcoins. It's like all Bitcoin all the time. And maybe I've just cultivated an excellent echo chamber for myself on Twitter, but it just seems like, yeah, I just don't see there's like no competition at this point.
Not even Mike?
No comment. Gonna get me in trouble with the big man.
Here's where I would actually disagree. I think that, let's throw a number out there. Let's say, would you guys say it's fair like 5% of the US got into crypto in some capacity in the last bull run? And like let's maybe 10x that and say like 50 or 60% get in this time. That's like 55%.
Oh baby. That's not gonna happen.
Oh, I don't know. But that's like a lot, an order of magnitude more new people getting in. And those new people haven't understood, they haven't gone through the learning process. And so, while I think it's very clear for the vast majority of us in here that, Bitcoin is not going to ever lose its kinghood, like no one else is going to get that unless they kind of get taken through the steps. And so I do think you're going to see a lot of new shitcoins come out and a lot of old shitcoins come back, and everyone saying, oh, but Ripple is the bank, like all the banks are using it. You're going to have to listen to all of that all over again. And like, there's no escaping it. And, you just got to be tight with the narratives and deal with it. But I don't see us, being free from that plague on our system.
But like, I'm not. Oh, go ahead. Oh, okay. I think though that the narratives are, even if we might perchance hear those narratives again, I don't think that they are going to be on the same level, and they're definitely not at the same time. When I started mid 2017, a little bit earlier, so just at the beginning of the bull run. And, I was writing articles about, obviously we're Bitcoin focused, but I was writing articles about altcoins. I was seeing about shit coins. I was seeing all of that, on Twitter, on other people were reading about it. People wanted to read about them. Now I don't see that at all, but we're already, well up the curve of that bull run versus when I was seeing this right at the beginning of the bull run.
I would disagree that we're not in the bull run. I know you guys have seen the charts of the Google Trends, and I hate to like lean on that as like this leading indicator, but I feel like it is a leading indicator that would signify some kind of bull run, some kind of like mass market searching out for this information. Number go up. Yes. Bull market number is going up. I get it. But if you want to talk about the masses and the retail coming, I do not think they're here yet. I'm not seeing people building mining rigs with GPUs in their garages right now. I'm not seeing S9s going for $300 on eBay. I'm not seeing this shit that signify a bull run. But I will say this, that I think that it is different than last time, because in 17, granted, I was new and I came in through like really the worst channels possible on YouTube, brought me to Twitter to find signal. It took a really long time to find the educational on-ramps. Since 17, the amount of thought leadership that has gone into thinking about Bitcoin and the abstract thought and the going galactic and the amount of podcasts, nothing can touch it. The thought leadership about Bitcoin is there, and it is really massive and impressive. And
it's insane.
There is no alternative. I mean, that is a fact. So that is something that just still, I think you said it, Brand. The kingship, that's what seals it right there. It's the mind. It's the hive mind. So that's what I gotta say.
I want to go back to Vake, because Vake, you're the only one who's not a 2017er here. You're the only quote unquote real OG. So like you've seen several cycles at this point. You bought it, I don't know when you bought in 2013, but you're a top buyer in 2013. There's a 2013 cohort, 2015 cohort, like there's these different cohorts that are very clear. So I mean, what you've seen several cycles at this point.
Well, for the record, I don't consider myself an OG. To me, an OG is pre-2013. Because 2013, there was a lot of mainstream interest. It had coverage on a major network. So 2013 was 2017 1.0. Yeah, I've seen multiple cycles now. I guess 3 altogether. In 2013, there were 2 separate cycles. There was April, May, when the price started, I don't know, like around 20 or something. I don't know. And it shot like 260. And then it came back down and settled on 75. And they just like sat there for like 6 months. And then in November of the same year of 2013, that's when it shot up to about 1,200 over the next couple of months leading into January 2014, right? Then you have a whole other, 3-year bear cycle until 2017. And the same thing happens all over again. I lost my train there. What was the question initially?
How many times have you heard this time it's different?
Oh, lots of times. I mean, I don't think we'll ever. Yeah. I don't think this is like the last bull run that we'll have. But what may happen again is like 2013, the next bear cycle or whatever, the next lull between 2 bull runs, I think will be relatively short. So maybe this time we only go up to like, I don't know, 100, 120, hangs out there for a while. But the next bull run will take place just 6 months later.
Can't wait for Stanley Duncan-Mueller to buy the dip. That's all I have to say.
Yep.
He's going to buy it way better than me. I know that for a fact.
I know this is slightly off topic, but I just wanted to throw out, I was thinking of a really great meme from what we were talking about earlier with is the halving priced in? And it's like the galaxy brain where it's like the small brain's like the halving is not priced in. And you got like the bigger brain that is the halving is priced in. And you got like the galaxy brain that's like the halving is not priced in because the market thinks the halving is not priced in. I feel like that's I don't know why I thought about that. It's
like the IQ bell curve meme.
Yeah.
Where the caveman and the galaxy brain.
Yeah.
So if it ends up being true, does every S2F skeptic have to issue Plan B and apology?
I think so.
Right.
I don't think so, because you can scale out beyond like their lifetime. So they can just say it will break at some fucking point.
All right, Nick Carter and Corey Klippstein are on alert. They gotta go and like kiss Plan B's feet.
I found myself so torn between the 2 camps because I love that bullish energy of Plan B and S2F. It feels so good, and the chart is clearly aligned. And all I can say is that I can also sympathize with Francis and the like Stoney and the miners who are like, go fuck yourself. You know, like this, your little fancy chart, the honey badger don't care, especially about charts, which I'm very sympathetic to. So I can't say that I'm in either camp. One makes me feel good, and the other camp also makes me feel good. So,
I mean, I think the way the Austrian economists look at this would be to say that, I think Safety has said this, is that the stock to flow ratio is what provides Bitcoin's value, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it follows a particular timeline. You know, they don't mean.
So, I mean, I don't know. I've heard Safety talk about the stock to flow as the first time he's ever questioned that a chart could predict human action.
I think
so. There's definitely been some, fondling of the S2F chart from some big wigs in the Austrian economic circle.
Sure,
that makes me want to like bet against it. I mean, if I'm going to think that human action is a real thing, then I'm going to bet against stock to flow. Because you can't fucking chart it.
And yet, time and time again, like the actions that happen that seem like we put the narrative to Bitcoin seem to come perfectly with what, you would expect from a classic Bitcoin cycle. I mean, it's like I had this conversation with our CEO in the office the other day, and this is about to sound, oh my God, I'm going to lose so many points with so many people, but thinking like yin and yang.
Guys, hit record.
Yeah, no, please don't. But like yin and yang, right? Like you can't have the good without the bad. And in fact, like the good creates the bad and the bad creates the good. And they like live in kind of this symmetry. And it's like, you can't have Bitcoin's price without these actions. And you can't have these actions without Bitcoin's like price movements. And it's like one manifests the other just as much as like the other manifests it. And it's a very dumb thing to say, but it's almost as if there is this self-fulfilling prophecy that I don't know.
So I'm a big fan of
the simulation we signed up for.
This is a simulation.
I'm a
good simulation.
I'm a big fan of the sovereign individual, and I mean I think a lot of Bitcoiners. I've heard this phrase multiple times. Is like Bitcoin aligns incentives. You can't be bigger than your incentives. Like human action, freedom, that is great on an individual level, but the masses, collective human action, that is driven by obvious incentives. And in the book, The Sovereign Individual, they talk about changing economics of violence and how the economics of violence and defense shift over time. And that changes human action. So, I mean, just being pro-human action doesn't necessarily invalidate any sort of chart that is predicting human action or predicting incentives or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but I would also just throw out, like, Vake was talking about the 2013 run, right, where we went, what was the start of that run? Was it like?
Well, the first run in April, May was like 20 up to 260, and then the second run went all the way to $1,200. The one in like November, December.
So like I like to think of that kind of as one big run, but the reason why it stopped in the middle was because China banned Bitcoin, right? It was like the first time China banned Bitcoin.
Oh man, China's banned Bitcoin so many times I've lost track.
Yeah, but I think that was like the first big, China bans Bitcoin.
Perhaps.
Shtick. And
I think. Oh, you know what it was? I think Silk Road. Silk Road went down in June or July. So I think because when was Ross Ulbricht arrested?
Yeah, it was in. Wasn't it October that he got arrested? It was like October 1st.
I think it was in between, so that may have been because I mean, back then the darknet was a much bigger proportion of the Bitcoin economy.
But
I'll
then
look this up.
But so then at the end of that run at 1200 though, that was the Mt. Gox sack, right? And I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong.
He was arrested October 2nd, 2013. So yeah, between the two runs in 2013.
But then at the top of 2013 was the Mt. Gox hack, right?
Yes. Mt. Gox, I was like February or March of 2014. Yeah. So yeah, shortly thereafter. And that's what led to the next bear market cycle and the crash.
And we all say that like that's what led to the next bear market and the crash. And yet this was another iteration of 100x from the bottom of the previous bubble. And it's like, it's the real question is like, what is causing what? And like, I'm not saying that the price, well, to some extent, going back to what CK was saying, I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but going back to what CK was saying with, none of these are operating at, no one's rehypothecating from an exchange. Like we're not seeing the I forget the word, but going, what's the word? Where you're
I don't know.
Like exchanges rehypothecating. Fractional reserve, right? Yeah. So like we say no one's going fractional reserve. And yet, the way that you end up going fractional reserve is through a bull market, and then it becomes clear that you're fractionally reserve in a bear market when everyone's trying to pull their coins off and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, there is this weird – I know I'm hitting a really annoying and boring point, but, like, I'm not convinced that the chart and human actions aren't, like, intrinsically just connected somehow, and one just begets the other.
Mm-hmm. Well, the interesting about Mt. Gox was, man, there were signs that it was going fractional reserve early. And in fact, I mean, I think a lot of people believe now that Jed McCaleb handed over the exchange at fractional reserve to Mark Karpelès because he gave it to Karpelès for free. Mm-hmm. He didn't sell the company to Karpelès. That's kind of shady, right? And then Karpelès, being kind of the dunce that he is, didn't realize that there was money missing until a while later, and then he got it a little over his head. But back then in the fall of 2013, man, there were posts on Reddit or Bitcoin about, people having trouble getting their money out of Gawk. So I never touched it. But the signs were there that it was going to collapse. People were having longer and longer withdrawal delays.
Yikes. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I know this is way off topic of institutional investors adopting Bitcoin, but there's been threads talking about the $5,000 withdrawal limit on Cash App. And that's already becoming a problem for some people that are buying, Bitcoins. And if Bitcoins are turning into 50, 60, 100K Bitcoins, you might never be able to get your Bitcoins off a situation like that. Do you guys have thoughts about some difficult lessons in self-custody in the next few years?
Well, I think if you're having trouble withdrawing, you go to River, right? Because I think Alex Leishman said he can handle any kind of request. You need $500 million of Bitcoin. He's like, I could take that.
Yeah, but these people are already stuck on Cash App.
Yeah, I know. As far as self-custody goes, yeah, the concern for me is the large corporations. I don't think MicroStrategy, right, is self-custodying. They probably have a Grayscale or something handling it on their behalf. So, there's going to be some custody issues in the future for these large hodlers.
On a similar topic, did you guys see OKCoin, OKX, talking about that they're going to start re-allowing withdrawals on the 27th or something? Anyone have any hot takes on what's going on there in the Chinese market? And
they probably pumped and dumped their own token. So
I don't have a hot take, but it'll be really interesting to see if everyone just mass withdraws after they open it up.
Well, the hash rate mass left their pool as soon as the exchange started having issues. So that was very interesting to see.
Yeah.
You just muted yourself, CK.
I muted myself. I apologize.
Hey, I think real quick. I think that the point you brought up, CK, about some of the fellas and gals out there putting big bags on Cash App, that's a real concern. I don't know. I gotta imagine. Cash App seems more woke than some of the other companies. It seems like they would try to adjust some of those limits as number go up. But you're putting your faith in them as custodian, but it sucks if maybe you were vested in there earlier, in 2020, when number was at $3,500. So now you've seen number grow very much so in this calendar year alone. So I think it is a concern, but I think it kind of reinforces that age-old narrative of not your keys, not your coins, get your numbers off the exchange. And, man, it's a constant struggle. And I really hate to say it, but some people will be burned. I will not be one of those people this time. But some people will get burned, and people will learn from it. And that kind of stinks, but I think it's a reality.
Cash App will also probably institute withdrawal fees at some point, right? Because they don't have it right now, right? They just withdrawals free.
Maybe network fees only.
Yeah, they pay the miner fee.
They're paying the miner fee, and they're paying a handsome miner fee.
Yeah, I know.
They're making sure you're in the next block every time.
Yeah, I have noticed that. It's very generous of them. Thank you. Thanks, Jack.
I want to stay on this kind of same topic, right? So we talked about plebs having issues pulling their Bitcoin off of Cash App, and then Vake brings up the point that what happens when these big companies have issues pulling their money off of a custodian, or they learn the hard way. What does that look like? And I'm kind of curious to hear from AJ, just because I feel like you're a lot closer to that.
I have a hard time seeing a future in which big institutions self-custody. Just because the name of the game, if you're a large Fortune 500 company, is just cover your ass. And so you want someone else holding those coins with an insurance policy. You want to know their address. You want to have someone to sue if something goes wrong. It's just from a liability standpoint, you're not going to want to be accountable to your shareholders if, you have $100 million on a Trezor in your filing cabinet. That's just not going to fly. I do think there's like an interesting space with like what Unchained's doing with like collaborative custody, where maybe you have a dedicated like third party who's holding one of your keys that gives you a little bit of redundancy in case you screw something up yourself. But as far as like fully self custody setups, I just struggle to see where I struggle to see how like a large financial institution or company would be able to do that.
What happens if a large financial institution wants to withdraw their Bitcoin or loses faith in their custodian?
It's a good question. I imagine they would transfer to another custodian. It'll be really interesting to see if there's ever like, if one of these custodians ever has a meltdown, because they always talk about these insurance policies they have. And I suspect that a lot of them don't really cover. First of all, a lot of them are capped in terms of like the amount they'll cover. And second, the types of claims that they cover are not very comprehensive, in the sense that like, you know, the most likely attack is probably two people colluding at the company to steal your Bitcoin. And, you know, almost every single insurance policy doesn't cover that. And so like if there were ever an event where that were to happen and a large enterprise were to lose like $500 million of Bitcoin, that would be super interesting, because I think a lot of people are going to find out your insurance policy was just something that you could tell your shareholders you had, but didn't actually cover you in the event of like a realistic attack.
I'd like
my
to
dream. Oh,
go ahead, Vake.
I was going to say my dream scenario for companies custodying, self-custodying, is to have like the board of directors, like say they had 11 people on the board of directors, and each one of them keeps one key. And so like, you know, together they have to maybe sign like a 6 of 11 multi-sig contract to move funds. But in the short term, they're all going to use third-party custodians like Grayscale. And the concern I have there is, you know, the government someday wants to, you know, they fork Bitcoin Core, so they create, let's call it Bitcoin Gov, and then they go to Grayscale, they go to the MicroStrategies, they tell them, you're going to fork your Bitcoin for Bitcoin Gov. And I mean, you know, if enough of these third-party custodians hold enough Bitcoin, they could trade at like a premium where, you know, the combined, if you split the market cap between the two forks, they may trade temporarily more than our Bitcoin. Having said that, that provides a profit opportunity for us, because we can dump their chain and have, you know, you could double your coins. So, I mean, it's kind of like, think of it as if SegWit 2x had passed and we could have gotten, I mean, I think at the time, it was trading at like 0.15 on the Bitfinex futures markets before it was canceled. But that kind of scenario could happen, could play out in the future if we have too much third-party custodians. Yeah.
God, I would love to see that just wreck house, because I don't know. I just feel like Bitcoin and like the chain is truth, and when you fight that, you will get wrecked. And the people that kind of confront that reckoning, they're gonna get larger. First it was Bitmain, but who's next, right? And it's exciting to think about. Yeah,
I mean, a lot of people celebrated when SegWit 2x was canceled just a few days before it was set to go through in November of 2017. But, you know, a lot of the really smart Bitcoiners were disappointed because they're like, fuck, I could have increased my stack by like 15%.
So as a 2017 Bitcoiner, that is the reason I bought a ledger and custodied my own Bitcoin. I was like, I need to get the fork. I need to get the fork. I was like, fuck Coinbase, I need to get the fork. So it was a motivation to take my own custody for the first time.
I mean, at least we got the BCH fork. We could dump that, but...
If I could take one optimistic view of third-party custodians, I've said this kind of before in a different show, but there is this bull case of, you know, let's say really big institution holds their funds at XYZ custodian gets hacked or, you know, runs away with it, but it is insured and the insurance policy is legit. Then you have a giant buy order on Bitcoin that has to be fulfilled. That just like basically comes out of nowhere. And so like I've toyed with the idea of like, what if one of the actually most bullish things that could happen would be Coinbase getting hacked, and all of that, you know, like obviously they're not keeping it all on the same wallet, but like if all of the Coinbase, you know, Bitcoin was drawn away, like I'm pretty sure some amount of that is like even FDIC insured. So like there is money sitting there, and I don't know, all of the details of what the insurance policy looks like, but there is a scenario in which, a giant buy order comes in because of a failed custodian. And it's like not even on the custodian themselves to come up with that money. So just wanted to throw that one out there.
I don't know. I think that's a little reaching for the pie in the sky there. If that happens, you're going to see a lot of people, even if that buy order comes through. Well, let's say that, yes, they have that insurance policy, that buy order comes through. The sell-off rate, I think, would unfortunately way outplay the buy rate, because you lose a lot of, those heavy investors that we're seeing today. They're not going to want to stick through that if they're going to be feeling bearish themselves. The plebs, they're not going to want to stick around if, they see this giant hack and, worry about that, even if it doesn't directly affect them, not infect them. So, I think that, the
plebs will stick around.
Idea, but
well, they might run away, but they also might come back. And if they come back, they'll have to buy up higher. Who knows?
It's a long game. It's a long-term game. That's without the doubt. You got to be in it for the long term.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess the thing that I'm thinking about really boils down to, like, if another Mt. Gox happened today, and there's not a Mt. Gox equivalent in that, by the volume, there are so many exchanges out there. But say that Mt. Gox was insured, and like all of a sudden there was just this huge buy volume, would it still play out the same way as being the top of a bull run, or could it actually play out as a completely different scenario? I just have no idea, but it's something that I toy around with in my mind.
That's quite an interesting scenario. Because, there are custodians who hold, meaningful, like Coinbase has over 1 million coins in custody. So, like, if they lose all those.
Because of GBTC, though. Goddamn.
Yeah.
GBTC, yeah.
Part of me feels like it's healthy for the ecosystem and, like, maintaining this anti-fragility for some sort of large-scale bankruptcy event to happen every bull cycle or every few cycles. Just because, like, you can't have people getting complacent. People need to know, like, not
True.
your keys, not your coins.
True.
And
it's been too long since we've had an exchange hack.
As long as I've been in the space,
That's not
there
true.
hasn't been
There's a lot of
a big
exchange hacks.
A big exchange.
Do you guys forget about KuCoin? That was one of the biggest
true.
exchange hacks in history. That happened like 3 months ago.
Fair point.
Rodgers,
Sorry, AJ.
A lot of those exchange hacks are self hacks. They're inside jobs.
Dude,
right.
This is one more point I was gonna make earlier. Is like take like a Goldman Sachs, right? If Goldman Sachs was holding Bitcoin themselves, like, who do you trust in the organization to then be in charge of those keys? Like, you need a custodian. Like, you can't have like Jimbo
Multi-sig, sir.
Well, like even multi-sig. If they're sitting on $2 billion worth of Bitcoin, how many corrupt minds do you need in order to make that Bitcoin disappear? It's not that much, and like. It's just a weird incentive model that I see it being really the reason why probably institutions didn't get in this past time, but I also see it being the main reason why custodians are even a thing.
Do you think the solutions are there, Brandon, today?
Yes. At least
That's the
there for
difference.
them to believe that it's safe enough to get in.
Got it.
What do you think?
Well,
AJ?
and they.
Oh, go ahead.
I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Fred.
No. Please take it away.
I don't know. I was just gonna say I think institutions are more worried about having someone to sue than they are having sovereignty over their own coins. And like realistically, if the government came down and just like wholesale banned Bitcoin, how many? I just have a hard time seeing like companies that are domiciled in the U.S. and have U.S. banking relationships, all their customers in the U.S., identifiable shareholders and boards of directors. Like, they're not going to be going rogue. They're going to be, they might sue the government, but they're not going to be, kind of outright resisting.
People want them somebody to blame.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't want.
It's a liability thing from their perspective. They want to outsource that to a third party custodian and just like out of sight, out of mind. Tell their shareholders they like hired the best custodian in the business.
So I feel this argument and I understand, but I truly feel that Bitcoin gives companies superpowers, and when they actually realize that, they're gonna say, "Fuck custodians! I'm taking full custody of my coin, and I'm gonna become an international beast." And there's so many companies that could adopt Bitcoin right now and become stronger than 99% of nation states right now that it's just gonna be too tempting. At some point, they're gonna take custody and they're gonna start dominating.
I'll take the devil's advocate position. I feel like self custody doesn't get you that far when you have an identifiable management team and board of directors that, if the government ever wants to steal your Bitcoin, they could just come like kidnap your CEO or your board of directors. And like, that's probably easier than trying to come take your hardware wallet or whatever. And so
How's it going for BitMEX? They're still under operations. No one's been arrested. Sam Reed is free.
That's true. I mean, maybe we'll see the BitMEX model become more popular, where it's fully distributed business. Yeah, but for the MicroStrategies of the world and the Squares, they're clearly a world away from Arthur and company.
I'll take a third point of the triangle devil's advocate point here, which is that how many publicly traded companies need to have Bitcoin on their balance sheet before it becomes economically infeasible for the U.S. government to ban Bitcoin or outlaw Bitcoin? I mean, if you're going to kill the stock market by doing it, and ruin these companies' treasury sheets and all that kind of stuff, it becomes an insurmountable risk to try and take that move at some point.
I mean, there may be a market for keeping your keys in countries that don't allow extradition to the U.S. So you have one person holding your key in China, one in Russia, one in Venezuela, and only together can they move them on. Yeah, exactly. Keep one key in a Swiss bank account.
That's a real sovereign individual feature. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean,
you, Fred. Sorry, I won't even tease my piece.
No, but I think going to that question, I don't think it would take that much to have the government, to have the U.S. government say, I don't want to touch this. Businesses reign supreme in the U.S. government. And, so if you have only a small number of businesses that are holding it, but as long as they, hire the right lobbyists, as long as they, pull the right strings, it's not going to play as much of a role. The U.S. government knows where it gets its bread and butter from.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. And I would also say, not only does it not take much in terms of companies getting on board, but it's look at what those regulators and people are now holding in their own pockets. And it's are they going to start betting against themselves? There's that little sneaky incentive model that emerges as well. I think it was, who was it? It was... CK, who was the mining pool? Was it Luxor who did the donation, the mining pool?
Yeah, Luxor.
Yeah, yep. To each and every...
Our boys at Luxor mining.
Yeah. They did a donation to each and every regulator or senator or congressperson and gave them each $50 in Bitcoin as here's your donation kind of thing. Hope you don't sell it. So yeah, I mean, there's so many sneaky ways that Bitcoin doesn't ban, or the government doesn't ban Bitcoin. One other thing I thought about recently too is the way that people talk about Executive Order 6102. And that was, the U.S. government forcing everyone to sell their gold and then doubling the price right when they got everyone's gold. Is at that point, the U.S. dollar was gold backed. So there's some amount of reason for which they would force you to sell your currency, or your gold, which is they needed to increase the money supply. The U.S. dollar is not Bitcoin backed by any stretch of the imagination. And so to then force people to sell their Bitcoins to the government in order for them to back their own currency by it is it's a complete overstep and like, you can argue even like a direct violation of the First Amendment if you think that code is speech and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's so legally infeasible for the government really to ban Bitcoin or try and force you not to use it from that standpoint. So, I think it's a bit of a naive thing for me to believe, but I actually do see it as like this highly improbable but talked about event of the US government actually banning Bitcoin.
Well, I think we're way past that point. I mean, once they auctioned off Ross Ulbricht's Bitcoins, that threat, they could not, if they wanted to ban Bitcoin, they could not have done that. Now, what's really interesting is the United States government has a policy that they do not auction off Monero that they seize. So actually, it's interesting. They maybe Monero.
What do they do with that?
They just hold on to it.
Aha.
Yeah, but they do not sell Monero.
Monero is the standard.
So Monero may actually be banned. I think maybe the same applies to Zcash, even though I'm very
Zcash is already flawed as fuck.
Yeah, I know.
The only reason Zcash exists is so people can trade it. I will stand by that.
Yeah,
just put that shit on ETH already. No one cares about the privacy.
Yeah, only like what percent of Zcash transactions are shielded? Like 2%. The majority are all open and visible.
Yeah, because they're used to go to exchanges. They need to maintain that feature.
Exactly. But I think Monero may in the eyes of the government be illegal.
So what you're telling me is there's a mid-level bureaucrat with a hardware wallet in his desk with like $100 million worth of Monero on it.
Maybe they burned it. Maybe they burned the keys. I don't know.
Oh yeah, definitely. They definitely burned it.
Yeah.
I feel like you'd want to preserve that optionality.
There's multiple FBI agents who have been caught trying to steal Bitcoin.
Silk Road.
Yeah, Carl Mark Force. Yeah. The guy who was extorting Ross Ulbricht. He was an FBI agent investigating him. He was also extorting him for Bitcoin.
That NGU tech is
the
just
state
too
would never
seductive.
do that. The state would never do anything corrupt like that. So
yeah, are they making into a movie? Is there a Silk Road movie in the works?
I heard there is, and I heard it's Bitcoiners would not like it. I heard it's one of those examples of the winners write history. I have a new saying, and I'm curious what you guys think of it. But Bitcoin fixes this by breaking this, and I think that that's a great example of the government would never do that, right? They would never extort someone for their Bitcoins. There's just so many examples of your cybersecurity system, your hardware, what's the word I'm looking for? Supply chain, like all of this stuff, like Bitcoin fixes this by breaking this.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say something real quick, just like regarding 6102, like anyone out there listening and you guys on here, like protect yourself, because, the adversary in this scenario is the state. And, as Americans, we're lucky we get to talk about this out loud, and we have certain freedoms. And right now we are free to hold Bitcoin. So, I mean, like the thing I just want to say out loud is they have done things in the past. The state will do things that is in its best interest, and it's not always in line with the individual's interest. So my advice would be to figure out a way to secure your keys, secure your coins, secure yourself, and be sovereign for yourself. So just something I'm passionate about. Just had to jump in there with that one, CK.
Yeah. Well, I said on Twitter last week that if you use multisig, you should publicly announce that you use multisig. That way, nobody has the incentive to come, break into your house in the middle of the night and rob you. Right.
Yeah. I mean, like, I am so sympathetic to that. And like, for those of us who are doxxed as Bitcoiners, everyone on this call, obviously, it's kind of like we're putting crosshairs on our back for the state. So it's like protect yourself and your keys. Just, do a little bit of homework over the holiday, just protect them.
Yeah. Periodically upgrade your security.
Buy those hardware wallets on BitcoinBlackFriday.com, 20 to 30% off. Come on.
Oh man, you can't pay for that.
Dude, I'll tell you what, the first few years I was in Bitcoin, all my Bitcoin was sitting in paper wallets, unguarded. in my place. I mean, it's not that way anymore. It's much more sophisticated now. But I mean, I think back to my security practices back then, and it was like, it's scary.
I got a quick question for Fred, if that's cool. I'm curious, just kind of being in that e-commerce retail payment space. So like for you, what do you see as like big barriers to adoption? Is it just people demanding Bitcoin as payment? Or do you think the tools are already built? Because sometimes it seems like observing the Bitcoin space, it's like we build before the demand is even there. But do you think that like a perfect storm is brewing at this point?
I mean, there are indications that, yeah, that could be the case. And you know, I mentioned it earlier. We did that study a few months ago. And part of it was comparing who were our biggest customers in 2017 to today. And, you know, especially with, you know, the 2017 bull run and today's beginning of a bull market, shall we say. And the customers are very different. You know, there's obviously some of the same things there, but for example, Bitcoin miners were a big part of our customer base in 2017. Today, they're not. It is, you know, like VPNs, web hosting, vaping, interestingly, has taken off a bit on our service.
So there's a correlation
in San
between
Francisco.
there's a correlation between vaping and Bitcoin.
You know,
Honestly,
who knows? That might serve
illegal
to
things
be
in Bitcoin.
the sign.
Stoners and Bitcoin. Okay.
But no, I mean, like, you know, there is a possible storm brewing, and I think combined with the state of the economy, I think is something that we should also take into consideration. That small businesses today have been screwed over by the government. They were promised a lot of support, and that support did not materialize. The banks abandoned them. You know, I was reading a Financial Times article from about a month ago that you know, was saying that the banks are just, you know, said, screw you. You know, I don't want to deal with you if you're not making money. Bitcoin offers them, you know, ability to control more of their sales, to control more of their profits, and to you know, be able to maybe weather through some of these problems. Because, you know, as we're seeing the economy drop, we're seeing Bitcoin go up right now. And a lot of even mom and pop stores might be looking at this. And we're seeing that in our data with you know, there are different types of stores that are coming forward and wanting to use Bitcoin.
So I want to jump in here. I have two points. The first is on the very last Bitcoin Magazine happy hour, we had a retailer from a travel website from Asia, and he was saying that when COVID hit, they accept both crypto as well as non-crypto fiat payments. Fiat payments went to zero. Now they are 80% Bitcoin. So the only people that are traveling right now are Bitcoin users. Beyond that, Ansel Linder, my co-host on FedWatch, he has this theory that he's like, forget the inflation crap. The reality that is happening is that the current system is breaking apart. We cannot allocate capital effectively. And what is really happening is that Bitcoin is the only place you can actually get growth. Bitcoin is the opportunity. It's the land of opportunity. It's kind of like what the United States used to be. But this virtual world, this is the true land of opportunity. And now you see these Bitcoin-backed services, they're able to actually drive traffic to all of these companies, and they're giving you back 9, 10, 12, 30% when credit cards used to give you back 5%, 2%. So the equity economy is crushing the debt economy, and it's just because it's just so much more vibrant, and it's just so much more active, and the growth is real in Bitcoin. It's just so exciting. And I that was really confirmed to me from the last conversation with the gentleman from the travel company in Vietnam.
Yep.
Dude, so what do you guys think about the Bitcoin culture? Kind of what CK is hitting on a little bit. I mean, it's been one of the most interesting things is to watch 2020 through the lens of a Bitcoiner. which is, effectively what this show was originally created kind of to do. I mean, it's like, look at this ridiculous set of circumstances we've been handed. We have this unique vantage point as Bitcoiners. What do you see as like what's happening? And, Bitcoiners were the first ones to jump on the COVID train. We were the first ones to jump off the COVID train. And like, everything in between, we're the first ones to call for, this crazy monetary policy. We're the first one. I mean, they're just keep naming it, but like, there's something to be said that there's this anti-fragility that we almost like take to heart and implement in kind of like our daily lives. And I'm curious to hear kind of your guys' takes and how you viewed this past year.
I want to jump in real quick because I feel like I've been really apologetic to like family members and close friends. I mean, Bitcoiners, I am a Bitcoiner, and we take asymmetric bets. And, like regarding 2020 specifically, it was a fucked up year. I mean, like, if you think about Corona, we saw bodies in the street. We saw people falling over dead in China. And as a Bitcoiner, what did we do? We tried to prepare for the worst. And I did specifically. I prepped. I got my mask very early for my whole family. I got kid-sized mask.
In February.
I'm telling you, man.
Late January.
For sure. 100%. I mean, like I've been watching Hong Kong the entire time, and I'm still watching it. It's a very sad situation. But I mean, like, I'm with you. Yeah, it's been a hell of a year. And I don't know. I think that as a Bitcoiner, looking at the community as a whole, there's not a Bitcoin community, but Bitcoin Twitter is a community of Bitcoin. I think that overall, I feel like it's stronger than it's been. And I think a lot has to do with the memes. I think that the memes have literally strengthened the community, and, there's a very strong narrative around store value. And I think that like literally the memes from Twitter are translating to the boardroom. And I think that we kind of touched on it earlier, but super bullish on Twitter, super bullish on the memes, and glad to be out there retweeting and liking some of the meme lords.
I actually tweeted this yesterday, but so hitting everything. I cannot wait, and I'm geeking out over the fact that I truly believe that economics textbooks in the future will have to explain money printer go burr. Like literally that phrase will appear in the history books, and like it's hilarious to me that we have like not only memed this truth into the world, but like hit the nail on the head in a way that the
you can ignore it.
You can't ignore it. And like anyone, you don't have to understand monetary policy at all to understand money printer go burr and to understand what that means for like the world. It's crazy.
If you listen to one pod with like Jeff Booth, I mean, like, you can't ignore this fucking phenomenon. Like, prices are supposed to go down, period. That is how humanity moves forward. We are efficient beings. And like, Bitcoin is that mechanism to make that happen. And I that tweet, I saw that and I thought that was a killer one.
Guys, I want to switch this over. I want to talk about price for a little bit before we close out the show. We're mooning. We're at 18K. We're holding that level pretty strong for the past 2 days, whatever that means. Throughout my history in Bitcoin since mid 2017, I've always known Bitcoin as an asset that's had to earn price levels. It moves quick, but it earns those price levels kind of like in hindsight after the fact. Just think of Bitcoin earning 10K. Think of Bitcoin earning even 12K. So the fact that we sliced through 14K all the way to 18K so quickly makes me feel like there's going to be a pullback. But at the same time, the narratives have never been stronger, right? The momentum has never been stronger. So I'm conflicted. What's going to happen with the price? I want to jump to you, Vake, just because you have the most experience.
I don't want to be like just another bull and say we're going to the moon right now. I mean, I like you. I want to say, okay, we're going to go down to 14K again and hang out there for a while, and maybe then we'll have a bull run. But I mean, I'll be damned, man. I mean, you're seeing the news coverage of it everywhere, and that's the distinguisher. Like, the price may go up, but if there's no news coverage, it'll come back down again. But you can see the hype machine is starting to gear up. And so I think we're on the cusp of a bull run. I don't know if it'll be right now, like, I mean, the next month or two. It might be 3 months away, but I think we're getting ready for 2017 all over again. I think 2021 will be 2017 all over again. 2020, we're just going to – maybe we'll hang right here for another couple
2016
months.
all over again.
Yeah. Yeah.
AJ.
Next year will be exciting.
I won't even pretend to know where the price is going in the short term. I do find it really interesting though, just watching like everyone's price predictions get progressively more bullish over the last year. Like I remember when we were at like 3.5K, people were like, we're going to hit 50K in the next bull run. And I thought that was like insanely bullish. And now 100K is just like the absolute base case. And people are talking about like 300K, like $1 million a coin. It's just insane. But in like a, 1 to 6 month time horizon, I have no opinion on where the price will be.
300,000 base case sounds great to me.
It doesn't sound stupid like it would have in 2018 though, like that sounds.
If I told that to my family
feasible.
right now, they'd call me stupid.
Yeah, but when you look at the big bulls coming in, my God, come on. You can't help but just feel like you have insider knowledge.
Is this time different? Fred?
I'm leaning towards the idea that, I don't know, what it's going to look like in a month, just like AJ was saying. But, I don't know. My gut feeling, it feels good right now, but I do think that, this isn't quite the point where we're going to break through that barrier. We've had a couple of these over the past 6 months where, we rise up, we level at that rise, we fall back down just a tiny bit, so on. I think that's going to happen again. What that base level is, what that height is, because, I don't think we probably haven't reached that height yet. But, who knows what that's going to be. But that's just my purely, uneducated gut feeling.
I'll go with 150. 150 by July of next year.
All right, price calls. Brand,
That's
I want to hear
that.
the opposite of top calls. I want to hear bottom calls. Brand, do we hit 15K again? Do we see 15K Bitcoin again? Everyone gets a chance to that, but Brand, you go first.
Yeah, great question. And I'm going to refer back to the question I asked Vake earlier, which is how many times have you heard this time it's different? We've seen this chart play out at least 3 times now. And here's something that happens every time. We hit the previous all-time high, and then we drop back down like 30-ish%. And so I don't see any reason why, like if you look back in January of 2017, once we hit that 1,200 mark, we went all the way back down to like 780 or something like that. And it was within like a week. And it's going to, hit you in the gut. So, I would assume that we're going to probably hit 20K and then we'll drop back down to like 13.5, 14K, somewhere like that. Within like a week or two, and it's gonna be like brutal, and everyone's gonna be like, "Oh man, maybe we're not in a bull market," but we are, and we're just gonna keep going up from there. But that's the bold prediction.
So Brand says buy the dip. Do we see 15K again, Vake?
Yes, but not after we hit 20K. Before, I think once we hit 20K, it's off to the races.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if we see 15K again, it's going to be before all-time high. Once we see all-time high, the sky's the limit. Just the FOMO sets in.
And for the record, I think after we hit 150, we go back down again to like sub 100.
We'll need to take profits.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people out there who will get in, but they don't believe this is the end of fiat, right? So they're going to take profits.
Yeah, no, I'll agree with the consensus here. I think we'll hit 15K before the all-time high. I think that'll happen.
God, so many fucking bears. I'm
Hey,
surprised.
I'll
I thought you guys were gonna be like, we're going to the moon. There's no stopping us. Joe, please.
I do think.
knock some sense.
I do think this cycle will be qualitatively different. And just going back to what we were talking about before with institutional participation, like the smart money is in the game. They're off the sidelines, and they don't have weak hands. Like, this is a long-term position they're taking. They're not going to sell. Like, the narratives are much stronger this time. There is an article to bust every piece of FUD that Parker Lewis has written in the last couple of years. And like, I just think like the educational resources and the same FUD that kind of precipitated, crashes in the past, and the same kind of retail FOMO and reflexivity that caused the big crashes in the past, I could easily see those not playing a factor this time, just given I expect it to be more institutional money.
Bullish. Love to hear it.
Hey, I want
Brand.
to say,
let's go to Joe. Joe, I haven't heard from you.
Let me
15K
say
again.
this. Regarding bullish positions for Bitcoin, I made a webpage. If you just go to Beefcoin, like beef, like the bull, BEEFCO.in, I've put together like the most bullish investment papers out there that you can pass along to your friends and investment people, whoever. These are like from the mouth of the people who have the big bucks. So anyway, that might be something worth checking out. But anyway, my price prediction is by July 4th, 2021, we'll have 1,776 sats per dollar. So 1776 sats per dollar on July 4th, 2021, going totally patriotic. And that would put Bitcoin at 56 grand per Bitcoin. And that might be a bearish outlook, but I'm just trying to be patriotic here. I think realistically, by July next summer, it could definitely have hit above 100K, and I will be holding and DCAing my balls off.
So speaking of Beefcoin, in January 16th, 2018, Beefcoin launched an ICO to expand production of organic beef from farm to table.
Beefcoin is not the domain I said. Beefcoin, but it's beefco.in.
No, I'm just saying, I Googled Beefcoin, and that's what I found is an ICO to expand organic beef from farm to
I
table.
can't believe you're being such a millennial right now. I thought you knew how to use a browser.
There's a coin for everything.
Fine. What's crazy is that internet is so great and pervasive that these young folks don't know how to type in a fucking domain. But anyway, I hope you can figure it out. Beefco.in. That is the shortest domain I can.
Wow, Joe has been drinking claws because he went on the aggressive.
A lot of projects do that co.in thing. I've seen that elsewhere.
Thank you, Vake, my man.
I don't know what the deal with that is.
I've been aggressively drinking over here.
I'm going to be pumping beefcoin.in for a while, but I just wanted to let you know that there was an ICO called Beefcoin. Almost as bad as
For the record, I'm planning a liquid side chain coin for Beefcoin, and it will be for trading strictly beef knowledge. So be on the lookout.
All right, guys. We're getting to 2 hours now. We could tell that Joe's drunk. It's getting late. It's time to put some steak into my belly. Let's go to last words. I want to start with you, AJ. What's your last word, and where can people find you?
Buy Bitcoin. Get long. Where can people find me? At AJ Scalia on Twitter. I just retweet a lot. I'm not very active, but I like memes. So.
All right. His handle is in the show notes. So if you're watching on YouTube, go follow the man. All right, let's go over to Fred.
Yeah, I'll echo buy Bitcoin, but I will also say use Bitcoin because I think that ends up driving more people to buy Bitcoin. If you want to follow me, you can check out at Blockonomics_CO.
Holding is using. Fake.
Thanks for having me. I will say stay humble and stack sats. And you can find me at Vake Raj on Twitter, VakeRaj.
Awesome. Joe, Bran, and then I'll close it out.
Real quick, guys, I said it last time, but I'll say it again. If you're out there watching, Bitcoin Twitter is pretty open. So reach out to people, make community, ask questions, slide in comments, because as of today, we want to grow this thing. So make yourself known and ask questions. And I guarantee everyone on this pod will give you a good response. And just be present, stay humble, stack sats. Thank you.
My DMs are open to any woman over a 7. No, but anybody can DM me.
It's girlfriend season.
Yeah,
guys. I would say 2020. What a fucking shit show, to paraphrase, and not even to paraphrase, directly quote Arthur Hayes. Guys, it is
just popped above 18K.
Nice, dude. It's been a year. We're halfway through November. Like we are making it. The most recent 2020 thing, I don't know if you guys saw it, was that Rockefeller Center Christmas tree that they put up that looked like it had just seen, like it was a 2020 Christmas tree. If you haven't seen it, it's freaking hilarious. There's also an owl in the tree that they like accidentally captured along with the tree, and they had to nurse it back to health. It's like, guys, it's just the most 2020 thing I could possibly think of, but like it's so cathartic. It's like, of course this happened because it's 2020, but 2020 is almost over, and then comes 2021, and it's going to be a beautiful year for Bitcoin.
Jeez,
I just want to add in here. I just want to add in here that Christmas tree came from my hometown in upstate New York.
All right, shout out.
Shame on you.
That is a pathetic looking tree.
The one that we gave another one about 3-ish years ago that looked a heck of a lot better. Trust me.
All is forgiven. And I'm at Brand BTC on Twitter.
The most 2020 thing is Gavin Newsom getting caught eating dinner at some bougie place, and then the very next day putting out a month-long curfew in the state of California. So 2020 is a hell of a year. You guys can find me at CK_snarks. Buy some motherfucking Bitcoin. Fuck these damn politicians. Follow Bitcoin Magazine. Make sure to retweet all this shit. Make sure to follow all my homies here. And tune in next week. We got another good show for you next week. Peace.